We're actually at a point right now. Indecision is a decision. In lieu of anyone making the decision to adopt what TED actually stands for, companies will continue gathering data. They're going to continue laying people off because they won't need the people, which means companies are going to make more money than they ever did with the least amount of expenses as possible, in which case they're going to use that money to pay dividends and buy back their own stock, which means anyone that owns a stock is going to be the ones that make the money, which means it's a very clear path to feudalism where the people that have the money actually have all of the money and the people that were dependent on jobs have no money. That'll scale up through society from those with no income to middle income to high income, kind of like mortgages in 2007. It wasn't contained to subprime, in which case all of the people that no longer have money are then become dependent on local government. The tax receipts of local government, though, are dependent on those that have the money paying the taxes. Therefore, the spread decreases tax revenues to such a point that local governments become completely dependent on corporations. They'll raise the taxes on corporations. Corporations will fight it but allow it because they have the money, in which case then corporations own the local government. Through that ownership, local government and corporations become inextricably partnered to now manage the serfdom of all the people because the people are dependent on them. Therefore, you have this feudal system. And the thing with AI is once that happens, you can't undo it because like if I have a complete persona of Steve and I have a complete persona of everyone that Steve knows, I can create a model. I don't need to know anything about the next person Steve knows. I know most probably what they're going to be like. And I could use that very intuitive model to A/B test at such a level that I'll be able to identify who that next person is without them ever having to really give me much data. So if you take that and extrapolate it, you have a system where the machine knows all, people no longer even have the ability to choose. They're going to have to institute some type of universal basic income, but it's not going to be because government or corporations going to feel fairness. It's going to be because they're going to say, we need to pay these slaves. Otherwise, if they revolt, it's going to take us all down. So the universal basic income, if no decision is made as of now, is going to be to pay people to live and be content. It's not going to be to share any type of wealth. We could either have the next 500-600 years of a feudal society until someone has some type of existential, the world is going to blow up and everyone revolts, or we can just bypass that and go directly to the Renaissance of all of the money coming into corporations is shared because the money coming in is completely dependent and a function of the data. The data is owned by the people. It might sound silly, but we're actually really trying to save the world, and that's what we're doing. So, hey, Ted starts the conversation. Good night, Ted shuts the conversation. Well, if you could wake Ted up by, hey, Ted, and then we're going to create a good night word, good night, Ted, which means we can identify the time period between where Ted wakes and Ted goes to sleep. And effectively, Ted could be a fly on the wall for your entire day. Like he'll listen to everything you do. Now, of course, that sounds like, whoa, that's crazy, but it's not for other people. It's just for you. It's for your benefit. So, okay, whatever. If Ted can listen to you all day, and if Ted trillions of times per second can calculate what your probable intent is, and if Ted can reach a 95% certainty of what it believes your intent is, well, then that data in real time is the most valuable data to any business in the history of the world. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic. I know I am, but I actually think that's also true. That's universal basic income, because say it's worth $100 to them. All right, fine. It's worth $100 to us. We'll keep 50 and we'll pay you 50. Now we're living a renaissance. The companies can participate and incentivize into the subscription of TED, and the subscription of TED is all of those jewels, all the different intents that come out of that conversation, in which case, oh, this one could benefit Walmart, send it there. This one could benefit Target, send it there. And by send it there, I don't mean that they actually send it to Walmart. I mean that TED pulls the appropriate recommendation that fulfills that intent, but it sources it from Walmart, therefore the sale's made. The point of the story being that solution is the holy grail, because it allows Andy to be Andy. Andy's life doesn't change. Andy wakes up and says, hey, Ted, good morning. And when Andy doesn't want to talk to Ted or doesn't want to be listened, Andy says, good night, Ted. Everything in between, Ted is essentially Andy's transcriber who perfectly knows every commerce opportunity in the world, who's also Andy's therapist, who knows that in this moment, Andy wants this. Andy might not know he wants this, but I know he wants this, so I'm going to offer it to Andy. Andy's going to accept this, and it's going to be the benefit of the person selling this, within the ecosystem and marketplace that is that fly on the wall. Imagine if every item that TED, fly on the wall hears or engagement or whatever is on the TED blockchain. What I mean by that is it's not connected to identity. It's connected to behavior. So Steve picked his nose after he sneezed. And so that data, which seemingly means nothing, would just go on the blockchain. And the point is the aggregate of the entire world's data in an anonymous fashion going to the blockchain would create a very predictable pattern of behavior, in which case you could actually predict what a person would do before it would do it, take that and scale it to the end of time. You now actually have Ted knows Steve and has his own persona of Steve, but then A/B tests what he believes of Steve against the entire TED blockchain. And what Ted is now able to do, not only predict what Steve will do to be able to deliver him intents he didn't even know he was going to have, but he'll be able to share truth with Steve in such a fashion, he's now able to act in a better way. We're at the point right now where we have to make a decision. Do we own our own data or not? Because a year or two of AI will build these models, will be agnostic to what you think you know. Like AI will say, yeah, I think you like grilled cheese sandwiches, but we know that you really don't. If you want to take your chances, fine, but we're going to deliver you ham sandwich. And you're like, ham sandwich is fine. Like it's the AI is not going to be so wrong that it'll be offensive, but that then cascades into behavior that you're now the square peg, not the square hole. Like you're fitting into what's been made for you. And who controls that? You no longer have control over your data because you're imprisoned by the persona that your data formerly built of the expectation of what you'll do. So the only way to free that is to own your own data. But how do you own your own data? Well, your TED owns your data, but your data is then placed on a blockchain anonymously. TED only deduces your data. So yeah, I know you like pizza. No one needs to know why I know you like pizza, but I know you like pizza. So TED becomes the object that is owned by the person that houses everything of that person, but in a scalable economy that allows every person to equally contribute to the fabric that becomes the renaissance of the new age. So the computer power that I think you're right about would be on the other end of it in terms of calculating the ledger of this gigantic database called the blockchain to identify patterns to then use actionably in terms of it's almost like human genome, right? Like we have all this, we have to serve up all of this DNA and figure it out. It's that instead of genes, it's behavior. And instead of the select humans that are using it, it is the humans that are using TED, which equals the entire world because there's three prongs to it. So you have the engagement, but why would you ever engage with TED? Well, TED is universal basic income. Well, how can that be? TED is now able to make the recommendations or autonomous purchases of those items on behalf of those companies. Therefore, the company doesn't ever need to market anymore. It's just paying a subscription service to TED. That subscription service will be a percentage of profits, and 100% of that gets distributed to the people that use TED. So now their data is actually being monetized. Well, if TED offers you universal basic income, that's pretty cool. But Ant, this isn't going to happen overnight. Like this has to grow. So TED also offers guaranteed full employment. Corporations are always going to invent and adapt quicker than local businesses, but because AI is like a weapon of mass destruction per se, every local business will go out of business because AI will be able to replace the labor and or win the customers over, collect the data, keep it. Therefore, local businesses can only compete if they're able to adapt with the technology as it's growing. Therefore, every town should have an AI agency, kind of like a job fair, like it's funded by the local municipality. Well, Ant, where's the local municipality getting the money? Well, A, if they don't do it, they're going to have no money because every business is going to go out of business and everyone's going to be unemployed. But secondly, the money will come out of their existing tax roll or whatever to fund, in which case anyone that wants a job there is immediately hired. These individuals learn the skill set. They're valuable to the businesses because the businesses contract through the AI agency, but for free. They don't pay anything. The local municipality pays for all of this. Now, the businesses are able to compete. They have higher profits. Maybe they lay off people. Those people go back into the agency. But as these businesses find that that's a very valuable resource, they hire the person from the agency. Okay, I love Steve. I don't want to keep working with him like 1 hour a week for free. Give me him full time. Here's $100,000, Steve. This is your 3-year salary. Do you accept? Cool. So it has an initial reinvestment, but because the people working at the AI agency are there to learn the cutting edge industry leading technology that's bringing us into the next decades, they are markedly valuable. So the businesses hire them. And at some point, those people will say, why am I working at this agency making 20 an hour, 25 an hour when I could go start a business right now? I know enough to make like 100,000 a month. Great. So now these people become their own entrepreneurs within the town. Their tax receipts fund the local government. The government is then able to continue funding this, but now they're able to fund free healthcare and this and that and cops and all the rest of it. Meaning when you put all three of these prongs together, TED, universal basic income, and guaranteed full employment, they all work together because they all support each other in terms of engagement. And the engagement is, by engaging, I'm getting money, but it's not free money, it's my data. It's finally monetized. TED is going to be built with Rhino Street within it, meaning every time anyone uses it, their search results are going to be within the 20-mile radius. So when TED makes recommendations or autonomous actions, it's going to do so with priority for the first 20 miles. Therefore, the sentence, if you build it, it will come, actually works. Businesses can now grow in local municipalities without fear of Amazon taking the clients away because everyone's using TED, and TED only recommends within the 20 miles. Therefore, every town becomes siloed into its own renaissance, and the entire world is saved. If Steve puts up his business and it's on Rhino Street, the only people that would ever see Steve's business are the people that are his neighbors. Therefore, his neighbors would say, Steve, or you ripped me off, I'm going to walk down to your house. It goes back to kind of like the story about your grandfather, the old school. Like, it's technology's solution to creating a digital back to the way things were, where every town is now a team. Like, they're accountable to each other. The value of the world is the people, but it's not the people in terms of like my skin and bones. It's what's in my head. It's my behavior. It's my thoughts. That's the value. So if you were able to extract my brain and extract everyone's brain and put it in a fair, democratic, anonymous fashion where everyone equally benefits from their own participation, I firmly believe that not only am I correct, but in lieu of me being correct, like if we don't do this, then the world will go its natural fashion where the companies and the government will figure this out by themselves. They're the ones giving us universal basic income. They're the ones giving us employment because we need them. We own our bodies, but they own our thoughts, but our body without our thoughts means absolutely nothing. If somebody knows that you know what they're going to do they still do it? TED doesn't act that way with people. TED doesn't say, Steve, I know you want pizza for lunch, so I'm going to order for you. TED will just order it. Okay, cool. Like, thank you. Or you'll say, Ted, I don't really like that you ordered me pizza today. And Ted will be like, okay, I'll never do it again. So TED then conforms to each individual personality to, like you just said, allow those surprises to scale. Maybe there's a Steve that says, yeah, he knows that I like pizza, but what do I care? Like, I just want the pizza. And then there's people like Anthony that are like, well, I don't want the pizza because you said I want the pizza. And Ted's like, fine, I'll never order you pizza again, you idiot. And I'll say, fine. And then, so my TED and your TED, although identical, are personalized to us. So it's kind of like you're able to take the population of the world and scale it in a personalized fashion. That's what we have in front of us. So that's the kind of control that we need to restore to the people before they realize that they actually lost it. And I think that's what every individual's TED is. That TED also, will operate kind of like an RFID chip in terms of as the world becomes smart centers, smart buildings, smart cars, smart this, smart that, it's going to be able to connect with each individual in order of proximity to them by understanding their TED and saying, oh, Steve, hey, how was that pizza for lunch? And you're like, it was great, thanks. Oh, hey, Aunt, how was that Chinese for lunch? And it's like, how did this person know that about you and know that about you? It's like, well, they were able to read our TED card and instinctually know how we want to be spoken to, if we want to be spoken to, what's on our mind. Only if you democratize this across the entire globe in a fashion that everyone has equal ownership to it, you can create like the most amazing Eden heaven ever in the history. It's just a matter of who has the control. And I think what we're doing is by being first out the gate and creating the initial infrastructure to be a TED blockchain, everyone instinctually knows there's no corrupting that. Like you're not, no one person has any power anymore. Everyone's just equal.